Hello, 여보세요, all my beautiful people. Welcome to the alternate point of view. My name is Tracy Lee. Tonight, we are going to have a very special guest on our show, and I have been looking forward to this for quite some time. So I hope that you all are as excited as I am to see this guest on our show. It is my first official guest that I will have on the show. And this is pretty serious, pretty important, because this is regarding a case that I have been following for quite some time. And it's someone that I've been dying to ask questions all throughout this trial. So I'm sure you are all very well aware of a trial that we have been following for over a month now, and also a trial that I started a series on because it is such an important trial. And it actually started out to be national news and then kind of fell off the radar for a little bit. And now the trial has come back with a verdict, or not verdict. There was a verdict on the premeditated murder in the Samantha Wall trial, which was not guilty. And there was a guilty found for lying to the police regarding Michael Jackson Bolanos. As far as the other charges, intended burglary, felony burglary, and intended murder, those were deadlocked. So there was a mistrial for those two charges. So what I am hoping for to find out from this interview is just really what we're all wanting to know, is what's going to happen next and how Michael is doing. Really just tons of questions. Questions we had throughout the trial, a lot of whys, a lot of what was missing, a lot of questions about the judge. I know there's just a lot of questions that we have. So I'm hoping that this interview will clear up some of those questions. I'm looking forward to this interview. I hope that you guys will enjoy it. So I hope that this will answer a lot of your questions along with my questions. And I hope that this will hopefully put some of us at ease. And, we will see. But I know it's something that we've been following for quite some time. I know a lot of you have been watching my series on Murder on Juliet Place. I was really hoping to have more information regarding the actual murder itself. I would really like to solve the murder. That's what I'm looking to do. But it's becoming more challenging because there's not as much cooperation from the city of Detroit that I would like to have. I'm in Texas, so that makes it a little more difficult. Also, funding makes it a little more difficult. So that's a thing. So when you have a little bit of roadblock in front of you, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So first of all, let's welcome everyone to the channel. If you are new to this channel, welcome. I'm happy to have you. If you have subscribed, thank you so much. I will tell you, nearly 70% of the people who watch this channel do not subscribe. So please, please, please subscribe. Please like, that helps the algorithm. Please leave a comment. And if you are so willing to do so, please buy a coffee. That also helps me help others, because that is the goal of this channel, is to fight for justice and help others fight for justice. So that is where the money goes. It does not go in my pocket. This channel is not monetized. This channel is strictly here to fight for justice and help those fight for justice that deserve justice. And that includes victims. It includes people who are being wrongfully accused. This channel is what we are here for, is to help victims. So I'm really looking forward to getting some questions answered, finding some things out, and, hopefully, at the very least, if we can't find any real closure, which obviously this case is still very open. I don't think we're going to find any real closure, but I think we might get some things answered at best. So there's been a lot of things going on, obviously, around the world and in our country. There's crimes going on every day, there's trials going on every day. So this trial. Hi,
Hello, how you doing?
welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great, and yourself?
Good. The infamous Brian Brown.
That is I.
Oh my gosh. I just want to tell you, welcome, first of all, and we think you are amazing.
I appreciate that.
Just I really seriously amazing. My viewers, myself, welcome to the alternate point of view. Thank you so much. We have watched your work and you are phenomenal. I even said to my viewers that Alan Jackson could take some lessons from you. Um, because you have a way with uh, instead of making a snide comment, because that's what he does at the end of some of his questions when he gets pissy, he'll say, "You should be ashamed of yourself." You have a way of going, "Oh, you don't, do you?" And you just you say it in action. So I'm like, "Ooh, Alan Jackson could take a lesson from Brian Brown."
I
So
appreciate that.
I really, really, I just love it. I love watching you work. It's amazing. So uh, one thing I want to ask you is, um, how long have you been doing this? How many years have you been doing being a defense attorney?
About 8 years.
Yeah, and have you always wanted to be a defense attorney?
I have.
Okay, all right. And what drives you?
Just the fact that there are so many individuals in the system who don't receive the proper treatment. I was young once, and I received some very false information from an attorney that I had hired, who basically just lied to me. And I figured that, hey, I know I'm not the only person who's experiencing this type of deception from somebody who's supposed to be fighting for you. So that was one of the many different reasons what prompted me to join the legal field.
Okay, so when you got this case, are you court appointed, or are you did you get this case court appointed, or are you being retained for this case?
I was retained for this case.
Okay. Okay. So, when you got this case, what were your first thoughts?
My first thoughts were that I believe my client. I believed him when he told me, what had happened. Basically, what he told the jury, and it was very believable. And then when I looked over the discovery, it made perfect sense of what he said, and the prosecutor's theory of the case to me just did not hold any water because the evidence, spoke against it.
So, one of my biggest questions, because my background is in forensics and criminal justice, so I have a huge issue. My thing is timeline. It really bothers me. So, was there ever an estimated time of death on the autopsy?
No, and the autopsy was rushed. I had hired a forensic pathologist myself, and he testified just to the very many inaccuracies and shortcomings of their forensic pathologist. I believe she was rushed. They didn't do a thorough um, analysis of Samantha Wall as far as a lot of things, as far as the depth of the wounds, whether or not it was any penetration of any arteries. And then they tried to clean that up after my doctor had generated a report that I had gave over to the prosecutor. So then the prosecutor tried to ask her pointed questions on some of the issues that my doctor had pointed out. And she was basically on the stand just kind of making things up as she went on because that was not entailed inside of her autopsy report. So it was just, I think, just from top to bottom, just across this investigation and across this case, was not a thorough job that was done.
Right. So because I've done an entire series on Samantha Wall. I've done a Murder on Joliet Place is a whole series I've done on my channel. And I watched the first of all, I felt like she wasn't even the medical examiner. She was the assistant medical examiner. I felt like she was quite condescending to you. Um, but when she was guesstimating the depths of the wounds, I mean, I measured 3 to 6 inches. And I know what a pocket knife is extended out. First of all, none of those weapons, I use that loosely, um, even measure 3 to 6 inches. There's no way in the world that those are proper tools to use for this crime because 3 to 6 inches, 6 inches would go from the front to the back. That's 6 inches. That's not even like proper measurements. It would have to have been like a kitchen knife, like something much bigger, larger, for her to even guesstimate 6 inches. So I couldn't even imagine that that's even the proper weapons, supposedly, that they are testing. So, um, I mean, I just go off of actual, like, if she's measuring that, that's wrong, that she's wrong. So, but, um, so you had your own forensic pathologist. He literally said that the autopsy was incomplete. I thought the judge for a second there was not going to allow him, and she would have been the first judge ever to not allow him.
It wasn't so much we were arguing about just his testimony. He had suggested that he felt that this was a crime of passion based upon the stab wounds. So that's what was the contested point, whether or not he was able to testify to that particular part of his opinion, which the judge did not allow, but the prosecutor wasn't contesting his analysis of whether or not the autopsy was done in a proper fashion.
Right. And I looked up actually Wayne County autopsies, and she was found on a weekend. And Wayne County does not do autopsies on the weekend. They actually take 72 hours to do an autopsy if a body is found on the weekend. So it's quite odd that her autopsy was done less than 24 hours. Her services were done at 3 p.m. literally the next day. And is there a reason?
Yes, the reason is because they had a lot of pressure from the family, and pursuant to Jewish law, the body is supposed to go into the ground within 24 hours of the death. So they were under the clock as far as completing this autopsy in a very short time frame, which forced them to basically cut some corners.
So that's really strange to me because I've spoken to people who knew Samantha and her family, and they're not Orthodox Jews. So that's Orthodox Jew law. It is not what her family. So they weren't really. I don't know why they say that because that's not exactly. Uh, that's an excuse. I don't know. So it's kind of weird. But
Right,
Orthodox. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Orthodox Jew, yes, but they were more kind of traditional, and they weren't. And she was very feminist and very like not traditional. So I find that kind of strange.
I do too, especially in a murder investigation. You have to be thorough as far as this investigation in order to determine, the things you need to determine to further the investigation. So if the family is just saying, "Hey, we need this body in a certain amount of time," you have an obligation to say, "Hey, no, we need to do a thorough investigation so we can find out who did this." Um, so I thought that was kind of strange too, but that's what the officer in charge had said. And I also had a call from an individual who was a forensic pathologist who stated that they knew the medical examiner and that there was a lot of pressure from inside of from the outside of the family to perform this autopsy in very quick fashion.
So I also have a question about the video that they played with Michael with Sergeant Ford. Is that his name?
Yes.
Okay, I don't like him. Sorry. Michael asked for an attorney 2 times. Did he not?
Yes. At the second interview, he did.
Yes. Does that not count?
It does count. Because the first time he asked for it, he asked for an attorney when he didn't ask for an attorney. He suggested that does he need it? He may need attorney. And then um Sergeant Four was stated that, hey, do you want attorney? We can stop this right now. And then Micah was like, no, basically, I'm willing to talk. That was in the first interview. The second interview, um, he did suggest that he want an attorney, but that was after pretty much all the incriminating evidence um, was was stated as far as what he did, where he went, which that was pretty much done in the first interview. So um, I wish we would have did it in the first interview, but that play the cards as well.
So when my other thing is, why were they allowed to play attorney client phone calls?
That I'm still scratching my head on that. We had a motion on that. The judge, for whatever reason, decided that they were going to allow that. I filed an interlocutory appeal with the Court of Appeals. Um, one of the judges agreed that they were going to grant me leave for application to argue that, but two of the other judges denied it. So it's a three-judge panel. So they denied my application for leave. But I mean, that was totally improper because it's all about the expectation of privacy, whether or not your client has an expectation of privacy. And within the Wayne County Jail, they had sheets of paper that were affixed to the wall right across from where the phone banks are, where the inmates use their phones. And it indicated that all calls from the outside of this jail could be monitored and recorded. However, calls to an attorney are exempt from recording or monitoring. So when an inmate reads that, they have an expectation of privacy. They're like, okay, I'm talking to my attorney, so therefore it should not be recorded. And then once they call, there's a recorded message that's on the phone that's basically saying the same language, minus a call to an attorney will be recorded, basically saying that all calls could be monitored and could be recorded. Not that they will be, but they could be. But if you take that into with the totality of the circumstances in conjunction with the letter that was on the wall, a person would have a reasonable expectation of privacy that when they talk to their attorney, that um, it won't be recorded. So then at our hearing, they had brought in somebody who works from the Wayne County Jail who indicated that there is a process where an inmate must notify the jail of who their attorney is so they can get their attorney telephone number exempt from being recorded and on monitor. So then I'm cross-examining this deputy at the Wayne County Jail, and he agreed that there's nowhere that's in the inmate handbook that would suggest any type of procedure which he mentioned in court, nor is that written anywhere. And he stated that it was only two individuals who's ever done it to his knowledge. And I thought that was kind of odd. And when we first had the hearing, we had a stand-in judge. Judge Van Houten was out for medical reasons, and we had a stand-in judge. And the stand-in judge, he has the language that he was using led me to believe that he was going to deny that because he was very like, this doesn't make sense to the prosecutor. And like, okay, the language is here right here on a piece of paper. What was he supposed to do? So I was very confident that he was going to grant I guess our request. However, in my opinion, he punted. He didn't want to, I guess, rule on it just because of the high publicity nature, and he was just a stand-in judge for that day. He didn't want to, make a ruling on it, so he waited till Judge Van Houten got back. And then by the time she got back, she ruled in the prosecutor's favor. And it's just so many lawyers in the building, so many lawyers in the profession were just so upset and confused by that ruling. It just kind of, turned, our community kind of, upside down for a short period of time. But, long story short, yeah, I'm in disbelief that the judge allowed those phone calls to come in, because the prosecutor tried to have a theory that I guess he was suggesting that I was force feeding my client the theory of what happened, because on the phone conversation, at the preliminary examination, Judge King made some type of remark saying, okay, it's very believable, but that being a thief he is, that he came across the body and tried to run her pockets. And then we spoke about that, and then my client denied, like, I would never go inside of her pocket. And then I guess the prosecutor was trying to insinuate that my client was denying that he ever came across the body at all. So, Judge Van Houten allowed that to come in, which, in my opinion, I think there was multiple bad rulings um, in this case, and that was just one of many.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that she didn't. I had a lot of comments that were like, she is very biased, but I was like, okay, calm down. We're trying to, look at this, you know, uh, she's got to follow the law, but it also is, she's a human and she's doing it in her own interpretation, and she can interpret it however she wants to and use it however she wants to. So, but this will be for something that gets picked up, later. So, um, so they basically, where did they come up with this timeline then? If there's no time of death on the autopsy, they're literally strictly going by the ADT.
Yes, strictly by the ADT, and the fact that my client just happened to be in the area around that time. So, to them, I don't know if they feel that way, but they were definitely insinuating it had to be my client, because her ADT triggered motion around the time that he was in the vicinity.
But so no one else was in the vicinity at those hours? I mean,
And that I don't know, because it seems like all the surveillance that I have, minus the individual who was running away around 124, that's the only surveillance that I was provided as far as individuals around that scene. And she didn't have any type of surveillance near her actual apartment. The closest there was the parking lot that's adjacent to her building.
so my other issue with the video is I watched the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, and the judge would not allow Binger to allow video in that Binger tried to put in that was drone footage and that was blown up to show that someone didn't hold a gun up or something like that during the trial. And the judge would not allow that because the video was altered and it was pixelated. So the judge watched it, he looked at it first, all of that stuff, and he said, you can't allow this. This has been altered video. So much like the video that they Frankenstein together, that's all altered video. How could that be allowed to be put in? They literally had a person piece together all of this video and then put a bubble around a shadow and say, yeah, that's him. That's it. That's an altered video. It's not the actual footage.
Right, and we argued that earlier, but it was it was a compilation, so it was video that was extracted from different sources and just combined. And some of the things had to be taken out. The judge had the prosecutor take certain things out that was in the compilation, but she allowed the video if it was extracted from um, a surveillance camera. She allowed that to be compiled to one video.
That makes zero sense. That's not true footage though. That doesn't even like compute.
I mean, in a sense, I mean, it's the footage was basically, so they extracted, so they have, say for instance, they have 30 different cameras, and they just extracted video from each camera, and then it took 5 seconds from this one camera, 20 seconds from this camera, maybe a minute from this camera, and then they just put it all in a timeline on one particular video. Instead of showing 30 different videos, they just show one long video with 30 different camera feeds in there.
Yeah, I think that's crazy. And I think putting a green circle around a shadow in the trees and saying that's him is
Right.
like that could be anybody.
It could, and Sergeant Sullivan, we got him to admit that at one point in time they were tracking the wrong person. Uh, when one individual was walking down the street, they actually had the green circle around the wrong individual, and we, had him admit that they had the wrong person. And then when Sergeant Ford testified, he admitted, well, he didn't admit, he stated that an individual who was my client wasn't. So he was,
Yeah,
I
we were
guess,
cheering you on. We were like, "Go Brian, go Brian!" We're like having a party. I was like, "We need to have like some confetti bombs go off every time Brian does something good." So what did you think about when you guys? I heard, I don't know if this is true, but I heard when you guys talked to the jury that the jury really didn't think much of Jeff's testimony.
Yeah, there were some individuals in the from the jury who were basically saying that they wanted more information. They wanted a better investigation as far as his involvement. So they were signaling or stated that they felt that there was not a thorough investigation. At least one person said that, and several other juror members were shaking their head yes in agreement when that one juror had said that.
Okay. So are they saying that they felt like Jeff maybe possibly had more to do with it?
Yes, that was my
Okay.
understanding when they said that. Yeah, that Jeff, it more than likely, could have been the individual who did that.
Yeah, because I'm looking back at my life when I was younger, right? I made some really stupid decisions, and I don't think any of my stupid decisions would make me confess to murder. So,
Yeah, me either. Yeah, mine either. And it's like I just don't
um,
see how somebody would be that delusional to think that,
no,
they committed something that they didn't commit. That just doesn't make any sense.
yeah, and I researched the medications. I used to be a pharmacy technician as well. So there's I don't know. Ask me something I've ever done. I've done it. So I used to be a pharmacy technician as well, and I know about the medications he was taking. And that's another thing. Like you can't. You're just taking his word for it. He's on the stand saying I was coming off this medication at this time and coming onto this medication at this time. No one knows for certain. We don't have a doctor. And even if we did have a doctor that said, yeah, he was weaning off of Trintellix at this time and coming on to this medication at this time, that doctor should be lose their medical license because you can't wean off Trintellix and take that other medication at the same time because that will make you cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs crazy. Those drugs interact like nobody's business. But you can cut off Trintellix immediately and take the other medication. The other medication is not going to make you do what he says it did. So uh there's no way you could have had that verified,
Uh,
right?
no, and I pointed it out
Because
to the
he's not on
jury.
trial.
Right, I pointed out to the jury. I was like, "Where is the psychiatrist who would testify to that?" Like, we heard so many different experts. Why didn't we hear from any expert who would testify? Like, yeah, that is a possible side effect from the drugs that he was taking and the doses he was taking. For him to say something like that, and like basically, he was told to say that in order to, escape from responsibility.
Right. He was definitely told to say it because you don't think that way. I mean, anyone who's ever had a panic attack, you're not able to say my name is spelled HERBSTAMAN and my address is this and my birth date is this. You're not able to function having a panic attack. That's just not how it works. So, um, did uh, did you ever think for a second that maybe the blood on Michael's jacket was a cross contamination situation?
I thought about it, but he told, I was my understanding, just like he told the jury, early in the case, this is what had happened, that he came across her. And it's like he told the officer Chad Osman, when he was going to the Detroit Detention Center, that he came across the body. So I knew that early on in the case. So once I got the discovery, it made sense as to where the blood was located on his sleeve, based upon all the blood that she had on her neck, in the way she was positioned, in the way that if somebody were to try to check her pulse, they more than likely would have to have some type of contact with either her hair or her clothes, which was saturated in blood, with their clothes, with their sleeve at the very least.
So how confident are you that maybe Thursday, when this all comes back in front of the judge, that the prosecution is going back to the drawing board and saying, look, we don't have enough to get a jury to possibly come back with a guilty verdict?
I'm optimistic about it. I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm 100% confident, of course, but I'm fairly confident that I don't know. It seems that a lot of things that were recovered and uncovered, I guess, in this trial would give them pause to go forward with the case. But I do understand that the high publicity nature of this case, so that could be a driving force for them not to want to back down and concede defeat in a situation like this. But if I were them, of course, I would go forward with them, but I can't say for sure what they're willing to do.
Do you think so? Is that something that it's high publicity there? When this very first happened, this was everywhere.
Yes.
And then it went crickets. And I feel like it went crickets because as far as country nationwide. Now, I mean, even the White House did a press conference about Samantha Wall's death. And then when it came to Michael Jackson Bolanos being the person accused, suddenly it went silent. And all I can think is because you're in Detroit, you're in a Democratic city, you're in a place where, white woman is dead. Here comes all of a sudden a black guy who is being accused, when literally the day after this happened, the cops put out a press conference saying, we have many people of interest, and one of them who is even almost ready to be called a suspect. I mean, it was literally the day after.
Correct. And I'm not sure why it went. I think because at first there was some type of concern on whether or not this could be a racially motivated hate crime, because it was around the same time that Israel was going through their conflict with Hamas. So there was some concern here. But I guess once that was ruled out, then as far as maybe the White House being concerned about the case, that wasn't so much of a concern. Um, but I know, some media outlets like, Dateline, CNN has still been somewhat following the case. They, did, I guess had a little article after the hung jury yesterday.
Yeah, now they're starting to get a little bit more attention.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering. So if there was something that you could do differently, if which hopefully you won't have to do this again, what would you do differently? I heard a lot of, this wasn't my job, it was someone else's job, not me, not me, not me. I heard a lot of that. And I really feel like I just want to say, Officer Osman.
Yes.
I don't know how that man sleeps at night, but I think he has a very hard time sleeping at night.
I think he may sleep better now. The fact that he told the truth, but we had to pull it out of him. We had to get it out of him, and I think he was threatened. I honestly feel that he was threatened by his superiors because he didn't write it in his report, nor did he have it in his body cam. But he told me. I mean, me and him had a conversation, and he remembered it. And for him to get on the stand and act like he didn't remember, he was very nervous, very nervous. I could see the nervousness in him, and it made me believe that he, was somewhat scared, and he was trying to be evasive. Also, we had to kind of almost force him into court because he was trying to avoid us. And then the prosecutor seemed like they were sure of what he was going to say, so that made me believe that, and especially take that in with the way he was being cross-examined the questions the prosecutor asked him, which I knew he was going to ask him about not having it in his report, not having it on his body cam, which made me believe that, he was approached by maybe one of his superiors and maybe reprimanded on, not following protocol. Uh, so I think he was scared on any type of, repercussion that might have happened, uh, or revenge, from him testifying, especially for the defense. He's testifying for the defense. So, that's, sometimes police officers, some of them, have a, I guess a personality or feelings that they have to be pro prosecution. But I've ran into multiple law enforcement officers, multiple, from sheriff deputies to Detroit police officers to court officers, and they tell me, they like, man, your guy is innocent. A plethora of them. So
What about the officer in charge that you had to call? She seemed like she was really pissed off at you for calling her.
yes.
And
Stockmeyer.
oh yeah, she was really mad. She was like, "Dude, I just had a baby. I ain't trying to be here. I don't recall crap." So, but I noticed that she treated Jeff with kid gloves. Like he got to call his mommy.
Yes.
She was like super nice. No one ever said that the ex-boyfriend confessed. They didn't put that out there.
No, they didn't.
They never
They
put it
didn't.
out there that the
No, they
ex-boyfriend confessed. But when
no,
they
they did
got on
not.
Michael, it was everywhere. So
Yeah.
why? I feel like, I'm just saying, as I said in all of my episodes, it's money, it's politics, it's that synagogue, because they are
Yeah. Oh,
still riding the coattails off of Samantha on that synagogue. It's
yes.
all tied in.
I would not dispute that.
Because I've been researching, I've been doing a lot of digging, and I have discovered that that synagogue is, yeah, they're about to have a block party next month, um, and there's a lot of money riding on that. And they're putting it in Samantha's honor. They're naming something after Samantha, even. So
Okay, I didn't know. Okay, I didn't know
it's
that.
I've been doing a lot of research on this synagogue. It's there's a lot of money. I also have one more question. Where is the ever elusive David Wilkinson that was supposed to spend the night?
Yeah, he was never caught. You couldn't find him. He's I don't. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to speak to him myself. Yeah, I know he was about to spend the night. I watched this interview, and it just amazes me, all the interviews of, people who she knew. It just, they were just treated so kindly. Even like Aaron Pergament, they never followed up with a interview after they found out that he was lying. That in the search warrant affidavit, he, Sergeant Martinez was like, yeah, this guy told Officer Crenshaw that he didn't have a key to Samantha Wall's apartment. We had a search warrant for his text messages, found out that he did. And then they did a search warrant, a search on his house, but they never subsequently interviewed him again and confronted him with that information. Nobody went back like, hey, we got this text message showing that you're lying, or you've lied about having a key to her apartment, and that key has never, to nobody's knowledge, had ever been returned, not that I know of. That's what they put in the affidavit, like there's no evidence that the key was ever returned. And it just, I mean, they, of course, they didn't want the jury to hear this information. Prosecutors spent half of the trial defending Jeff Hersman, and then I guess the other half pointing the finger at my client. So it was just very odd the way things were done, and even after Jeff Hersman admitted to it, he never had an interrogation. So there was no interrogation after he called 911. Like, so he went there, and he didn't even really request a lawyer, because he didn't even know his lawyer's name. He requested to call his parents, and then he was like, "Hey, can you guys call that lawyer you got for me?" And then they didn't ask what lawyer. They didn't ask, what are you in jail for? What happened? Why you arrested? No thing, anything that a concerned parent would ask, especially for somebody who's, doesn't have a history of being arrested. You'd be different if, okay, being in jail every other weekend, and like, okay, what did you do now? I'm not even going to ask you. But if somebody who's just not used to being arrested, that's, I thought that was rather odd that that question was never asked.
Oh yeah, I'd be the one to be like, "What did you do? What did you do?"
Or at the very least, or at the very least, what are they saying you did? I mean, me as an
Yeah.
attorney, I would never
What are they?
ask somebody what they did, but what are they charging you with? What are they saying you did?
Yeah.
What did you, things like that.
So, what is Michael? How is Michael feeling? I mean,
I mean,
how did he feel?
I mean, his spirits are, they're okay. I was more frustrated than he was. He, of course, he wasn't ecstatic because he felt that it should have been a not guilty, but he was calm, and he's patient, and he just feels that, like I do, that eventually the truth will come out. The truth, it was slowly dripping out. Some of the jury obviously believed in the truth, and the majority of the jury for that matter. It's just a couple of outliers out there who just for whatever reason, I guess, didn't understand.
Have you ever had a trial that you've had jurors switched out in the middle of deliberations like this?
I have had situations where there had to been alternates, and that's why they normally always pick 14 jurors. In this case, we picked 16, because the length of the trial, because sometimes, after dismiss two of the alternates for whatever reason, somebody might get sick, something might happen, and you might have to call in an alternate. So it has happened before, uh, in one of my cases. They've never been deliberating that long and had to switch in the alternate, but sometimes it may be a day, where you get dismissed after the trial, and then the next day, one of the juror members has a medical emergency or family emergency, and they contact the court, and then the court has to call one of the alternates to replace that juror.
Did you feel like the judge was being too pushy by making the jury keep going back?
Um, So, yes and no. To be honest with you, I felt, really confident. I felt rather confident as far as a not guilty, and I was hopeful that it's just maybe one or two jurors who was holding out. So I kind of, personally wanted them to go out, go back, and and communicate, and hopefully, a unanimous decision, because I felt that it was a vast majority of the jurors who was, in our favor versus the other way around, uh, just based upon the evidence that was presented, and then the lack of uh, the prosecutor meeting their burden.
You've had cases against this same prosecutor before. I've watched another trial you've had with him. He's pretty. He's got the same MO. So I've watched him do do trials before, and he kind of has the same MO. So
Yes.
um, I just want to let you know that we've been praying for Michael. We've been praying for you. We think you're amazing. We think you do an amazing job. We can tell that you definitely believe in your client. Um, and we are doing everything we can to, raise awareness for Michael, raise money for Michael for when he, does get out, and hope he, get his life started again. Um, I've also been chatting with Tierra, so she's just staying strong. She's doing really well, but I know she's not able to talk to him as much. I know he's afraid to talk on the phone.
Yeah.
Bless
No.
his
Yeah,
heart.
absolutely. Absolutely.
God love him. He's just like afraid to talk on the phone now. So, but uh, you're awesome. I think, everybody just loves you. We're all cheering for you. We're hoping your partner's amazing too. She does a great job. Uh, so, is there any advice that you would give besides the advice that I give to people is, I don't care if you're guilty or not, you ask for a lawyer.
Oh,
Very first thing.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. Don't say anything. Say I want a lawyer, and don't be ambiguous with it. Don't say, do I need a lawyer? Maybe I need a lawyer. case law says that you must unequivocally request a lawyer, like, hey, I want my lawyer. And at that point in time, they have to stop talking to you. Anything if they continue to talk to you, then it can be stricken. But then again, once you request a lawyer, you can't then go back and start saying, okay, I want to talk now, because once you do that, then, you know, it starts all over.
Okay, I want a lawyer. That is
Yes.
what you have to say. I want
Absolutely.
a lawyer. Magic words.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And also, I was trying to do a comparison video, but I don't want to compare you because I think you're way better. But I was trying to do a video between you and Ben Crump. I think he's Ben Crook, but I think you are way better, way better. So I think you could like totally take him on and anybody else on, actually. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think it's been awesome to watch you work. So anytime you want to come on and give some legal advice, I'd love to have that, because people are always looking for an actual lawyer, not me, who is not a lawyer, to give advice. So anytime you want to come on and give some legal advice, I'd love it and appreciate it so much. But honestly, I think you're one of the best to watch. You're great to see work, and I love that you believe in your clients and you work so hard for them. Is there any advice or anything else you want to say?
No, I thank you for having me on, and it was a pleasure. And if you want to have me, if you would like to have me on in the future, just let me know, and I can, you know, make some time.
Yeah, I would love that. It would be awesome. I'd love to have your input on some cases that are going on out there, for sure.
All right, not a problem.
All right, thank you so much for your time, Brian. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Hey, you guys. So that was Brian Brown, Michael Jackson Villanos' attorney. I hope that you enjoyed the interview. I hope it answered some of your questions. It definitely answered some of mine regarding the autopsy. It answered some questions regarding some of the people on the stand. We could definitely see that officer in charge that he called was not happy to be called to the stand. We could definitely tell that the officer Osmond, who was being very vague and didn't want to tell, we could see that he was kind of gotten to by some either fellow officers or the prosecution. Also, what we thought all along about that client attorney privilege call, that was something that probably shouldn't have been in. And if there ends up being an appeal, I do believe that'll be something that they can use. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I was so excited to talk to Brian. I probably forgot like a ton of questions. But everybody, please keep praying for Brian. Please buy a coffee so we can help Michael, and keep praying for justice for Samantha, and keep praying for Michael to get out. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for tuning into this channel. 감사합니다. I will see you all in the next video.